for CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency. My name is Najib Rehman, and I'm a financial services consultant with over 25 years experience and background in retail and commercial banking. Joining me today on this webinar are two of our very experienced panelists. First, let me introduce Shahzad Shahid. He's the Group CEO of TPS Worldwide. Shahzad is, I believe, amongst Pakistan's top IT industry leaders, having spent over 2 decades in the IT industry and services across multiple geographies, and with primary focus on digital banking and payments. Shahzad has also been closely associated with Pasha and has served on President of Pakistan's Committee on Emerging Technologies as well as on the Government of Sindh Committee for IT. With him, we have Mr. Muhammad Taufiq Yusuf. Taufiq looks after the enterprise solutions and data analytics function at Saudi Private Aviation in Saudi Arabia. Taufiq also brings with him over 20 years of experience, primarily in data analytics and cloud computing field. He has founded several startups that specialize in cloud-based ERP solutions. And among many other accolades, he also holds a certification in Ethereum blockchain development. So before we start, let me just give a little background about what we are going to talk about today. And I'm sure many of you are aware of how the payments infrastructure has seen this rapid influx of private digital currencies, which has created this whole new parallel universe that stands to sort of undermine the authority of maybe central banks. And in response, central banks globally have accelerated the exploration of digital currency and really to stay relevant in this really fast evolving digital scenario. Um, as you know, in Pakistan, of course, none of the digital currencies are legally accepted, at least for now. But in terms of central bank digital currency, if you look at the global scenario, a report was released by the Atlantic Council just last year. So far, they have revealed that around 134 countries, that's representing 98% of the global economy, they have or are taking steps to convert their central bank money into a digital form. Hardly 3 years ago, this number was about 35. So you can just imagine the rapid growth, towards this initiative. If I can just quickly share the global status. So out of these 134 countries, 3 countries are fully launched, which is primarily Nigeria, the Bahamas, and Jamaica. Obviously, not mainstream, main global, status countries, but still, these economies have fully launched CBDC. 36 countries are in pilot stage, and if we look around our region, basically India, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, they're all in the pilot stage. 30 countries are in development stage. 44 countries are in research stage. Pakistan is one of them. And the 19 odd remaining are inactive. So Pakistan is currently in a research and evaluation stage, assessing whether CBDC is a viable route in Pakistan environment. Uh, our central bank, State Bank, has expressed its interest, in launching CBDC, but I believe they are taking a cautious approach. I think they are observing India and other countries, around the world, how the adoption process is going. But if we look at also our central bank's strategic plan vision for 2028, this is something that they are very keen, and they look at it as a next step in the ongoing transformation of central banking operations as well as payment systems in Pakistan. So, with this background, I would like to start with Shahzad. If he could perhaps first maybe define what CBDC is, and secondly, what would be the key motivations for any central bank to explore or implement CBDC?
Thank you, Najib, for this overview. I think you are, mashallah, as much learned about this topic as we are. So, CBTC is Central Bank digital currency. So what is CBDC? What is digital currency? What is electronic money? What is fiat money? I think you have to understand the different concept before you can understand what is CBDC and how do they really differ. So let's first understand what's the problem with cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stuff, right? Because they actually are very pretty similar to them, or they look like a similar. So think of it for ease sake that if you have a Bitcoin which is under control of the regulator, you know, it is, for simplified definition, this is something like a CBDC. So if you have a fiat digital currency, a currency which is electronic in nature, purely electronic in nature. Secondly, which is a legal tender by the government. So these are the two characteristics primarily. They are digital, electronic. Secondly, they are the legal tender. So this is very specific to the country itself because legal tender cannot be considered legal by multiple countries, right? So unless you have the interoperability. So this is CBDC is a digital currency which is considered to be a legal tender by the central bank. This is just like a Pak rupee or the US dollar or the British pound, right? They're all the legal tenders. Um, why they are relevant to a country like Pakistan, for that matter, why 100 plus countries are exploring it, why 10, 12 countries are at advanced stage, why 3, 4 countries have already rolled out at a larger scale, is because of different use cases in different countries, right? It is I can't really say that why Jamaica has done and why Bahamas has done and what is China trying to do and what is Dubai wanted to achieve or what is Saudi up to, right? uh, but primarily this is about one is about payment sovereignty, you know. So we all know for a fact that the digital money that we have today has a problem of who controls them, who owns them, and what if because of a geopolitical situation, right, you may find yourself into a problem where the currency is no longer into your control. You know, so the payment sovereignty has been creating a lot of regional or country specific initiatives. CBDC is one of them. So this is something that is not vulnerable to any other country's sanction or whatever, right? The second is about alternate to cash. The the digital payment or the electronic form of money that we have today, which is actually, I mean, if you have a cash in your bank, right, the electronic value is in your phone, right? But this is electronic value and this can be reversed or whatever, right? But if you have a cash in your bank, sorry, if you have a cash in your wallet, this cannot be reversed unless somebody really takes it away. So we need to have something which is equivalent to cash, the paper money that we have, that is mine, you know, no tax. The thing that you have is for me to spend. CBDC is that alternate to cash, which is as good as cash itself, which means that it has to be, usable for all use cases. It has to be available. It has to be acceptable. These are the things that are not available with electronic money. So PayPal is not accepted on all, merchants. Cryptocurrencies are not acceptable on all merchants. Not everybody issue it. Not everybody accept it. But CBDC, by definition, being a legal tender, once it's there in a country, right, it has to be accepted across. So, so this is a smaller definition of CBDC. We can have more conversation with Taufiq Sab and all, right. I'll keep
Right.
other conversations for later questions.
Sure. So, तो अगर तौफीक साहब अगर मैं आपसे if I can just dig a little deeper into the which area which Shahzad also just alluded to, just for a bit more, expands into how digital currencies or central bank digital currency differs from, let's say, a cryptocurrency, right? You have obviously have experience in this area. So अगर इसके ऊपर आप kindly थोड़ा सा elaborate कर दें कि specifically किस तरह different है and how can people see the differentiation?
Uh,
Excuse me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Najib Saab. First of all, I'm not from the financial background like you and like Mr. Shahzad. but from the technology point of view, and with some good connections with some of the DJs and a few friends in the executive position in Binance, I got to have the interest in the technology. Plus, then we started working on permissionized blockchain. So, in terms of the technology, I got interested and about the technology. So, first of all, just clear that what I'm not the basic expert for the financial part, but just out of the research and interest. So, first of all, the difference you ask, what is the difference? Is the controlling factor and the non-controlling factor, the anonymous transaction activities and the known transaction activities. For example, uh, first of all, we have to understand what the basic difference of fiat and the cryptocurrency. For example, there are different types of currencies. If you say cash, rupee, dollar, pounds, as we know, then there is another type that has been used previously and currently also a lot of people favor is the investment in gold. So, but for example, you have 10 kg of gold and you want to take it outside of Pakistan. Try it. Try passing through the airport. You cannot simply first taking it, carrying it, then can you put it in your bag and carry it? So, as Mr. Shahzad said, that we need something alternative to cash in my wallet. So cryptocurrencies play a role here, whereby you have your wallet, your digital currency. It is in your wallet, but only it is digital. That you can carry anywhere. Okay.
Right.
Uh, but then comes the anonymity of the transactions. So, like for example, recently we have heard a lot of exchange. They got penalties. One of the founders, he got criminal charges for cryptocurrencies. That means anonymous transactions can be used as one of the vulnerabilities of the cryptocurrencies. So, in contrast, CBC controls those anonymous transactions so that terrorist organizations, money laundering, these transactions cannot take place. So this is one of the very fundamental difference that we see. And if you go to some of the regions are people who go in fully with cryptocurrencies and go out. Just to explain to our viewers, uh, they are very much against CBDCs because it doesn't serve their all in, all out purpose of gaining the profit. Uh, there are some valid points also in terms of their anonymity of transaction, but these can be handled through the implementation. So we have to look into those implementations. Like for example, Nigeria, as mentioned by you, has launched, but many people are not using over there. They have already launched, but they are not using it. In contrast, Bahamas, if you see, their implementation is little bit different than what they are doing. So that is why. Plus, then Mr. Shahzad also spoke about the vulnerabilities that are attached to it. So definitely the vulnerabilities of your money being stolen and etc. is controlled and mitigated in CBDCs. Of course, it is uh, in digital currency also, but in digital currency, it is anonymous. So when it becomes anonymous, you have to prove. For example, you lost your wallet, you have a hard wallet, and you lost it. Then it's finished. It's there is no return of it. But in CBC, yes, the bank or the central bank controlling it will have some proof that okay, this was yours. So
Right.
these are just small use cases or small things that differ it from the mainstream, you can say, Bitcoin and
Right.
Ethereum style cryptocurrencies.
Okay. Since you talked about use cases, let me just ask Shahzad. Okay, Shahzad, I mean, if we look at all at least the benefits or the pluses of CBDC, a country like Pakistan, it would be an ideal, I think, market, to launch CBDC, because it literally, I think, addresses a lot of our issues. If you look at financial, related to the financial aspects are concerned, especially if you look at currency in circulation, right? Pakistan has a close to, I think now, almost 8.6, 8.8 trillion rupees, sitting outside the banking system. So, what do you think? Would be some of the key use cases for CBDC, and within Pakistan's environment, how do you see it? Its benefits, basically, especially for the central bank, and to and also from the FATF perspective. So if you would like to add some views on that.
So I think Taufiq Saab has really explained a lot of factors that I decided to not go into detail, and I think it was very clearly defined to us why CBDC makes a lot of sense, right? And how does it really differ from conventional
Mm,
electronic or cash money? Now, in terms of Pakistan, right? So Pakistan has few very important areas that it needs to be addressed. One is the financial inclusion. I mean, we have seen globally that it is tough to have accounts opened up by 100% of the population in
mm,
any populous country, right? Brazil, Indonesia, India, Pakistan, China. There's no such thing as 100% account holders. Pakistan is unfortunately among the least in the list, the lowest in the list. So first is the financial inclusion. This is the top use case that Pakistan
mhm,
can benefit from if CBDC is rolled out carefully, intelligently, and across. Because if you have to replace it with the hard cash, it has to be accepted across. It has to be as low cost as a cash is, which is basically free for the customer. So these are the real differentiator from the electronic money, because when you pay through your card, when you pay through your digital wallet, at times there is some fee charged,
mhm.
you know. But when you pay the same for the pay for the same thing through your cash, generally this is free. The merchant does not charge it, right? Does not
Right.
charge the customer. So this sort of, if we are able to create such a model, financial inclusion can really improve. The second is by the virtue of a lot of fintech coming up, and because the CBDC is a liability on the central bank ledger, think about how much innovation we can see around, right? A lot of
Mm,
local and national use cases can come up on how to really make more use of CBDC, because this is programmable, and a lot of controls can be built into the CBD itself. It can,
absolutely.
like the figure said, it can secure the customer from theft and misuse, and it can really lock it up for the way the customer really wants the money to be used. The second important use case other than financial inclusion is it is cross-border inward remittance primarily. Pakistan is a country which is heavily dependent on the inward remittance. So we're talking about 30 odd million dollars, which actually are received every year. So think about if we can have a bilateral or a multilateral arrangement where the CBDC is issued by Saudi, UAE, and other countries where they actually working on it, right? And we've got a arrangement. Then CBDC can really remove the intermediaries, can reduce the cost, can reduce
Mm,
the time, and really make it quick. And it's just like putting money from one wallet to another wallet across country, right? So this can really make, and this will, by the way, all encourage the financial inclusion as well as the digital adoption across the country, right? So this is the second. So if I this these are two key use cases. I
mhm,
mean, there can be many, right? I mean, one can really have some very specific use cases, which may be closed loop in nature, or they're done on a very specific segment of
mhm,
customers. But but this is what I really think that Pakistan should consider. That said, because these require adoption across the merchant acceptance.
mm,
So no country today, other than few, have been really able to roll it out across for masses.
mhm,
So Pakistan may start with something like a inward remittance cross border, have some arrangement with Saudi or UAE, UAE especially is relatively advanced stage. Saudi is now more on the wholesale CBDC at this stage. But I think
Right.
some kind of arrangement can really give you the quick start with a use case that is driven by the Beni and as well as sender, because Saudi remittance is basically costly both by the sender, and it takes time and cost for the receiver as well. So I think we've
Mhm.
got these two. Other than that, there's a long list of auctions and purchases and all that can be then eventually put to use. But this is for Pakistan in my thought.
Yeah, so just to kind of expand on it, I mean, we were discussing about P2M or merchant payments. I mean, that can literally be at zero fee for the, there'll be no MDR. So that can really impact, the usage of payments over using the CBDC, I would think. But iske saath, I mean, the couple of things that aapne mentioned ki, one thing was you said it's programmable. Now, when you say programmable, would that mean that the central bank can program the currency for certain uses as well, and can restrict it for certain uses? Is that what programmable in layman terms would be for a CBDC?
Technically, yes. But if it's a legal tender, do you really want to do that? I'm not sure. I think generally the central bank do not want to do that.
Hmm.
The intermediary fintech and stuff, which will make it really purpose-specific wallets and purpose-specific use cases, they may want to offer services which actually limit or at least advise a customer on how to really use that money and put certain risk controls and other measures to protect the customer. But I'll let
True.
Taufiq Saab, shed some more light on it.
Yeah, Taufiq sir, before I come to you, because इसी से एक related चीज थी जो मैं शहजाद से जरा discuss करना चाहूंगा, that would be, like our traditional banks, right now. Of course, their primary, the deposit mobilization, which all banks are doing. I mean, they're dependent upon deposits. They give out loans based on that, and they give return to the customers, and they earn money through the deposits. So with CBDC coming, or let's say if it does come in over the long term, I'm not talking short term, wouldn't that impact the traditional banking system also? Because uh, you know uh, it- the CBDC won't be sitting in some bank's treasury or earning returns. What are your thoughts on that?
This actually is a very, very interesting point, right? In fact, the CBD is making the banks uneasy
Amazing,
because
right?
this is a liability on the central bank, right? I mean, what if, for
Mm,
example, I mean, interesting, the banks are not really concerned about the money that is not really with them, which is the cash, money in circulation. But the moment they see that CBDC is going to be liability on the central bank, they say that it's going to really take the money out of the banks and into the central bank books directly, right? Not realizing that 8 to 9 trillion rupees anyway are outside the banking, side. But nevertheless, so coming back to it, these banks are are a bit uneasy globally
mhm,
about CBDC because the deposit on which they do lending and all, they earn float, they do lending, everything, right? That money
right.
or that currency or that cash, whatever, is going to be out of the banking domain. This is certainly a real um, concern that the banks have. That said, the central bank is only issuing it, you know
Mhm,
so if banks create the wallet where they can have both
mhm,
the CBDC as well as the whatever, they can assist. You see, it's more about use cases, right? It's about,
mhm,
I mean, when somebody said that, when the digital banks come up, will they really eat up the conventional banks, or will the fintech eat up the commercial bank, right?
mhm,
I think
mhm,
it's more about use cases, and eventually every player is playing its own part,
mhm,
and the economy is growing, and then the use case is growing because the cash which was sitting idle in somebody's bank, in somebody's pocket, or the currency which is sitting idle in somebody's bank account are not really put to use. So my thought is that it's going to be a very collaborative, very very collaborative
mhm,
ecosystem where fintech, central bank, and banks will all come together, create use cases, and everybody will eventually make money, not on the float,
mhm.
I think, but I think more on the transactions and the
Sure. Okay.
expansion of payment ecosystem.
True. And of course, I mean, globally, as we've just discussed, it's still in its infancy stage. A lot of countries are doing their research and evaluation, and the ones who have launched it, they are seeing how the adoption is going. Like Taufiq Saab also mentioned that चाहे नाइजेरिया बहामस वगैरह में भी जहाँ लॉन्च फुली हो भी चुका है, I mean it's not 100% use is currently, fully adoption nahi hui hai iske andar so far. So Tawfiq, if I may ask you on the privacy and security factors, agar hum if we look at the let me just pivot a bit on the data protection side. uh, right now, we still have a bill for the past 3-4 years जो मट्टी खा रहा है पार्लियामेंट के कमरों में. आई थिंक पीडीएम जो आई थी गवर्नमेंट, उन्होंने शायद कैबिनेट ने तो, जहां तक मेरी इंफॉर्मेशन है, वो अप्रूव कर दिया था, बट इट लैक द पार्लियामेंट्री अप्रूवल. और डिजिटल सॉरी और जो प्राइवेट पर्सनल डेटा प्रोटेक्शन लॉज का जो बिल है, इट स्टिल हैज नॉट बीन अप्रूव्ड बाय द पार्लियामेंट, सो इट्स नॉट अ लॉ एज येट. तो उसको, keeping that in mind, lack of a law for data protection, and then of course the privacy and security factors into the development of CBDCs, uski upar if you can just give our viewers a bit of insight into that, please.
Yes, very important point, actually, because this has been one of the concerns for many enthusiasts, you can say, or early adopters of the digital currency, that they fear about the privacy of their transaction. Not only this is one of the factors that is, you can say, it's delaying the adoption of CBDCs in the countries which have launched, and the other countries who will also launch will face similar issues. Uh, there is also a security threat, like for example, cyber security threat. For example, in the regular cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff, they are distributed. So now, also addressing the same point that you discussed with Mr. Shahid, also it is somehow linked, that it depends on which model you are using. For example, if uh, as Mr. Shahzad said, that maybe the banks can have their wallets, and the central bank is the one which is issuing the authority. So you can have an indirect model of implementation, whereby the currency is controlled by the central bank, and which is currently also happening with the current financial status. And banks are the ones which are holding the customer value, or the customer wallets are with them. So this way, if they have their distributed ledger, because the technology behind it is again blockchain, and the value of blockchain comes in when you talk about the distribution or of the nodes and stuff. So if the banks are holding, or they become as a validator of the transaction, so it depends on that, how you are implementing. And for Pakistan, I think it is more of a value, due to different political and other reasons, economical reasons, that people have less trust in central bank. Uh, but not just with Pakistan, many other countries, but in Pakistan it is a little bit more, because they see that, okay, that's kind of and we are also, you can say, a little bit pessimistic about the theories and stuff, that okay, it's getting controlled and stuff. So if we have distributed ledgers which guarantee that the transactions are secure, they are validated, there is less fraudulent transactions, then the adoption would be very easy. So and of course, when you give the authority to the banks, or you include them in the ecosystem, a lot of other use cases will come up. So there are now fintechs, there are regular banks now, mobile banking, or digital banks are coming up. A lot of companies, they are getting their license for digital banking in Pakistan. So there will be a lot of ecosystem that will generate new innovations.
Mhm.
Plus, we also talked about the intercountry transaction. Uh,
Mhm.
that inclusion also helps through CBDC. So if we have very good, like we have good relations with the Arab countries and Saudi Arabia, especially where I am, they are very much, you can say, keeping an eye on their data protection and everything. So for the inclusion also, we need to pass GDPR kind of bills in from our
Mhm.
parliament, because these countries will not do integrations with any of our platforms if we are not guaranteeing or have law to protect such data.
Excuse me. नहीं बिल्कुल सही है अ, इसके अंदर now since we're talking about cross border payments for our viewers इसमें ये बताएं कि for instance let's say if tomorrow our central bank you know adopts it and launches it, does that mean that they have to be fully aligned with the other countries' central banks as well in terms of how, what are the processes and for what, is it for retail, is it for wholesale? So uske koi parameters वगैरह, I mean, without going too technical, so all these central banks would also have to be aligned, right, for their cross-border payments.
Uh, the answer would be yes and no.
Okay.
So
Okay.
why yes? Because as we initially discussed, that it is a legal tender by a
Right.
central bank. So for the legal tender to be honored, you need to, in another country or out of your geography, you need other central banks to be aligned with you.
Right.
But if again, because as Mr. Shahzad said, that it could be done programmatically. So everything
Hmm.
is done through some lines of codes. That's it for simple layman terms. So you can write
Hmm.
some code, some contracts and implementations whereby you allow other people to hold the currency, this digital asset, because these are assets. So you allow them. For example, some shop in Saudi Arabia, they can announce, okay, we are accepting this transaction or this asset. But again, it is up to what value, what type of implementation. A lot of factors comes in that, because it is linked to your actual currency.
Right.
So the value
Right.
will be linked to your currency. So if we have a devaluation of currency going on, uh, no one will adopt your currency, even if
Hmm.
it's a digital currency. But if you talk about that, okay, Saudi, they want to roll out, people at least in Pakistan or in India, in Bangladesh, they will be happy to hold that asset without even transferring it.
Hmm.
Uh, it all depends on how your economic situation is happening, how you have what regulations, laws you implement to have this as a success. Or the other way around is that, okay, you join a consortium or something of CBDCs with UAE, Saudi, China. Maybe China is launching their digital yuan. So US is also working on it.
Hmm.
So I think there is only one country that has rejected, that is El Salvador. They have
Hmm.
only rejected it because they are accepting Bitcoin as a legal tender. But
Hmm.
eventually, all the countries are moving towards it. So, like for example, there's Swift in current scenario
Yeah.
for transactions. So you have to come up with a consortium, and it will come because countries want. But it is CBDC is not dependent on something like Swift for the transaction, because you see them as an asset, as mentioned, that it is hard cash in your wallet.
Okay. Uh, Shahzad, if I can just, obviously, once, or any country, or let's say in Pakistan context, once or if the adoption does start, um, obviously a lot of things will have to be changed, to be aligned with whatever form of CBDC is launched. And then, of course, we are looking at the hard currency and CBDC to coexist until some time where one will taper off and the other one will be more footed within our economy. Obviously, we are talking long term here. But let's say whenever it does get launched, from the bank's perspective, since your organization is pretty much embedded with almost, I think, every bank in this country. So in terms of cost to the bank, obviously a lot of banks have invested in their core banking platforms and other uh, you know infrastructure upgrades that they have done. Do you see, or any major impact on banks, let's say, to adopt CBDCs if they want to? Obviously each bank will probably have a CBDC wallet to offer. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think this is an opportunity, right, which you can't really let go. For example, when the State Bank came up with the Rust project, right, MPG,
Yes, right.
you just can't say that I'm not interested, right? I mean, like it's a instant payment system which is opening up low cost transfers, low cost payments. I mean, if a bank doesn't want to do that, they're losing big
They
time
lose,
on the
yeah.
opportunity that's basically coming out of it. So one is the regulatory pressure, but the second is also the market demand and the customer pressure, both by the merchant, the businesses, as well as the customers.
Mhm.
So, whenever this is rolled out, right, I'm sure the banks will find uh, business reasons to invest into the infrastructure and systems and the
Mhm.
processes to really quickly, get there and become compatible and succeed there. There'll be a lot of
Mhm.
innovation. There'll be a lot of pivots that we will see around happening,
Mhm.
but this is something that I am sure is to create a lot of excitement in the market, right? I mean, like, there'll
Right.
be uneasiness, there'll be concern, but
Sure.
that happens even when internet come up, right? You don't want to have
Yeah.
the website on the internet,
True.
right? This is something that the data is stolen, but I think technology now is pretty stable, and they are for very business and serious use cases. So I
Mm.
don't really see, why this will not be taken up. Second is about because concern with crypto is that it is not a legal tender. It is not accepted or
Yes.
owned by anybody. In this case, you're
Mm.
talking about the central bank, which is the Ministry of Finance and the government of Pakistan is behind this legal tender, is behind
Right.
this legal currency. So I'm sure there'll be trust by both, the merchant as well as the account holder or the customers, as well as the adoption. And wherever there's adoption, there is a business opportunity. This is picked by the fintechs, digital banks, or banks. Will be forced to come and quickly do something about it.
Yeah. And just thinking about it, I mean, hundreds of use cases, come to mind, of course, and it's limitless, and but on a much broader scale, I mean, obviously, as you know, आजकल, one of the key uh, hot topics is the tax collection, or the government's view that the tax, not everyone is paying their due uh, in terms of tax. So how do you see CBDCs, let's say, over a period, once CBDCs are launched and they start overtaking maybe the cash, the physical cash part? I think that this should be a wonderful news for FBR from that perspective. No?
I think you see, the Indian experiment of deep monetization was not so successful. If
Hmm.
you really take a look at it later on, right?
Yes.
It had a lot of success because a lot of fintechs in India came up because of it.
Hmm.
But then we saw a lot of consequences as well.
Hmm.
So I believe the adoption of digit of the financial inclusion as well
Hmm.
as inclusion in the text net can be best served by something like a CBDC, because you see you
Hmm.
cannot hide it. Unlike a paper cash, you cannot hide it, right? There is
Hmm.
there's always a pairing, and you know who is really holding
Hmm.
this currency. So I think for a country like Pakistan, like I said, for financial inclusion, for tax inclusion, I think this can be a, I mean, there has to be a process overall it out, which is not so
Of
straightforward
course.
because any country is now in the experiment stage. But from the face of it, I think this is great. I'm sure you've also read about M-Bridge project, which is between UAE, Hong Kong, and China, and they have also. So you talked about how the multi-country works on it.
Mm,
So this is just like Visa Mastercard. So
mm,
if you create a multi-country rails payment rails, you have to agree on
mm.
the specifications,
The
settlement process,
standards, yeah, yeah.
dispute process, and stuff, right? So while CBDC is for one country, but you can have a multi-country setup. Mbridge is a great example of how the three countries have come together, and they, by the way, have done a transaction of like I think 13 odd $million, which is 50 million dirhams by UA in China. And they have because this is still in the pilot stage, they have at least performed the transaction and they are moving ahead with it. In fact, like I said about the payment sovereignty, so this is assumed that the BRICS nation, the Brazil, Russia,
Yeah,
India, China, yeah.
yeah. India, China, yeah.
So they may be basically, it may be see mass adoption by
Mm,
especially these countries which actually falling in the under the BRICS list of countries,
mm,
and they may come up and they possibly may come up, with some standards, which may be taken up by these countries.
mm.
But again, I mean, this is all right,
No,
khyalat
of course. Understood. Because, बहुत सारे, especially मैं तो ये सोचता हूँ कि, one of the other areas that have to be looked into very deeply once, or, we progress in this direction, is on the legal side as well. I mean, because right now, everything is all the legal our regulations, starting from our constitution all the way down to our legal aspects. I think everything will have to be looked into in very detail, in terms of the changes that may come, or which are associated with the CBDC. uh, Tawfiq Sahab, if I can, just one area jo I think is always, I think, kind of debatable, इसकी इसकी जो अडॉप्शन में जो हर्डल्स आती हैं, अभी अगर हम वी टॉकिंग अबाउट डिजिटल पेमेंट्स इन पाकिस्तान आल्सो, आई मीन, वैसे तो नंबर ऑफ अकाउंट्स हमारे माशाल्लाह 260-70 मिलियन के करीब हैं, अगर इफ यू लुक एट ऑल द banks and microfinance institutions and microfinance banks and e-wallets and branchless banking, सबको अगर हम जमा कर लें, तो ये प्राय और पर्सनल अकाउंट्स की बात कर रहा हूँ, कंपनी अकाउंट्स की नहीं, तो ये तो 260 280 के दरमियान, 280 मिलियन अकाउंट्स के दरमियान आता है. ऑब्वियसली नंबर ऑफ कस्टमर्स विल बी लेस, बिकॉज हर एक के मल्टीपल अकाउंट्स होते हैं, मल्टीपल बैंक से हर कोई डील कर रहा होता है. तो बट आई थिंक द जनरल आइडिया इज इट्स एनीवेयर बिटवीन 20 and 30% फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन. बट फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन का सिर्फ ये मतलब नहीं है कि भाई आपने एक अकाउंट खोल लिया और बस आप बैठ गए, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली देयर इज लॉट ऑफ, अगर हम ब्रांचलेस बैंकिंग में देखें तो ऑलमोस्ट 50% अकाउंट्स आर इनएक्टिव, जिसमें कोई ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं हो रही है. बट जो अडॉप्शन के चैलेंजेस है, अगर अगर हम सीबीडीसी की भी बात करते हैं, तो डू यू थिंक the financial literacy or digital literacy, will that play a huge role in CBDC? Because already जो existing हमारा जो payment systems हैं और जो उसकी offerings हैं, वो adoption में, is that, do you see that to be a hurdle there as well?
Uh, जी, Najib Sahab, of course, we are one of the countries which have very fast digital adoption, but we also have to see that when it comes to the financial part of the of this, there are a lot of areas which do not understand all of this. They are used to the paper money,
Mm,
even for example, if we go for demonetization or something, you will find that a lot of people, they are left behind with the old currencies and everything, because they don't understand that what is the value, or what the financial process is going on. So yes, that is one of the hurdles. But when we are talking about CBDCs, that means we are phasing out uh, fiat currencies, and we are moving towards digitalization. So it will kind of enforce people also, but of course it will take time for everyone
Of
uh,
course.
to
Yeah.
be included. And again, then central bank and the law of the country has to play a role to safeguard the slow adopters also. Uh, for example, Rust is one of the very good examples, but a lot of people are not using it. It is directly linked to your banks and everything, but people usually they log into their bank accounts, their bank mobile applications, and do the transaction instead of just using the mobile numbers and everything. So yes, adoption will be slow, but it will happen because of the enforcement from the central bank. So
Mm.
I don't see that it will absolutely not happen, or we will have some issues related to adoption. Pakistan is one of the countries which have early adoption of technology. We have people who are young. Most of our generation is not that old, crossing 60s or 70s, that they don't understand the new technology, or they'll have problem adopting this technology. So it will happen. It will happen, but yes, it will be slow for some of the less literate areas, or less literate provinces, you can say, or villages, maybe something like that. They will have slow adoption, but central bank can play a very good role for that.
Okay. Uh, Shahzad, since we're talking about at least hurdles in adoption, if we look at our mobile penetration, वैसे तो of course it's I think over 180 million or whatever number they quote. But अगर हम phones की बात करें, of course, smartphone penetration versus your feature phone. If I'm not mistaken, the feature phone is still around between 40-45%, if not slightly more, is still in use. And so obviously you think this can, I don't know if CBDC can work on USSD based or some, that kind of format or not. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, for CBDC to be fully to have the full impact of CBDC. Obviously I'm talking in the mid to long term. You think that the feature phones will still work on this?
So I think very, very fair point. So one of the points that a lot of central banks and the governments are contemplating and deliberating is how to make CBDC usable in offline mode.
Hmm.
Because when this is actually a cash or a fiat currency alternate, it can't really be. You can't exclude those who do not have a smartphone or who do not have data on the smartphone. You know, so yes, offline usage,
Yes.
has to be enabled. There could be ways to do that. USSD is one. There could be others. That I agree. But in terms of adoption, I believe, like Taufiq Saab said, I think Pakistan has seen adoption wherever this makes economic sense.
Mm,
I think the problem of time happen when we don't see the economic
mm,
sense to the buyer or the seller, and that's where we see there is a lack of. Actually, there's a lack of interest. The
mm,
same Pakistanis who actually have been into the business of, for example, Easy Business Jazz Cash, right? They're not really
mm,
bank trained people. They're just a normal person in the street who opens up a and an agent kiosk and starts to, for example, help. Secondly, Pakistan has more of Pakistanis are trading in cryptocurrency than they are trading in the stock market of Pakistan.
PSX, yeah.
So basically, what does it mean is it's about economic interest. If you have
Mm,
economic interest, people will learn about it. We will start using it. So think about it.
mm,
We have started to learn about Binance, VPN, how to really maneuver around and how to buy the dollar from the other market and stuff, right? So I think people are smart. uh, a lot of Pakistanis are living in UAE and Saudi. We know that they have adopted technology because they have to, use technology. I think it's just about how do we are we really understanding the customer segments and making the product ready for the use cases that they are interested in, and the fee structure
Hmm.
that makes sense for them. Adoption, I don't see as a problem, and I think this is what CBTC can solve, and this is what the promise, by the way, with Rast
Hmm.
is. There is massive interest among the acquirers, because they really see that the moment you basically, remove the 2.5x% of the
Yes.
MDR on the payment purchases and make it,
Instant
a
instant
fixed fee,
settlement.
a fixed fee or a very,
Yeah.
very low percentage. There's a
Yeah.
lot of excitement and interest that we see in the market. So I really think that
Yeah.
these digital rails have the ability to create a real digital economy, which we have otherwise not been able to achieve
Hmm.
through the other ways.
No, I think you've really made a very key point in terms of KR. If it's going to make some financial sense, or if it's going to impact you in a positive way, adoption will come no matter what, whether you are literate or illiterate. उसका एक अगर मैं एक छोटा सा एक anecdote बताऊं आपको, because since I'm in Islamabad, so where I live, there's a market nearby, and as you know, a lot of Chinese people live here in Pakistan now with the CPAC initiative and all. So these shopkeepers who are not literate, most of them speak Chinese. Our local desi shopkeepers. So, and they, because they see a target market, there was a huge language barrier, and they learned Chinese, and now they are dealing with these customers in Chinese, and which was quite amazing, because I never thought that people who are not educated or literate can actually do that, but they are doing that, and that's a very clear cut case. So I absolutely agree with you that wherever there is a common interest, or there is a value proposition, people will flock. Since we are almost close to our end of time, if I can just quickly ask both of you, if you can just briefly, if I just request that, what would be your uh, advice to our central bank in terms of adoption or its implementation? Maybe one or two things that comes across, that you would like to advise our central bank on CBDC and its adoption or its rollout.
Sorry, Najib,
Yeah.
if the time permits,
Mhm.
would you want to answer the questions? There are two questions on the chat. You want to take it up?
Oh, sorry, I didn't notice. Hang on just a sec. Uh, okay. There is a question which some of us have. If somehow we make Pakistan a cashless country, do we still need to have CBDC? After making it cashless, all the transactions will be digital and in PKR. So why do we need a separate digital currency for it? For example, Sweden is cashless and they don't have CBDC. Can you please help understand this? Either one of you would like to take that. Did you
I mean,
understand? Did
I
you
mean,
get
this is
the? Yeah.
so no, so this is okay, right?
Yeah.
So, Sweden always comes up as an example in few cases, right? But I don't think that Sweden and Bahamas should be the reference point, right? So you talk, and this is why I use the word populous countries.
Hmm.
Like we have to look at the countries which have hundreds of millions of population with a serious diversity in terms of economic, geographical, and other behaviors. And this is where we see that we know for a fact that, just like somebody said back in the days, that we need banks, we need banking, not the banks. And somebody said that there'll be no banks, right? I mean, it doesn't really happen that way. There will still be banks, there will be cash, there will be electronic money, there will be wallet, there will be accounts. So
Right.
we really have to have these payment options coexist. You know, the cashless something is like a vision which may see an eternity to be achieved.
Hmm.
But we know for a fact that we have to have a reason or a mechanism to replace the currency in circulation, is a closer alternate to that cash in circulation. And I think that
Mm.
CBDC is that promise
Yeah.
because of its safety, because of its ubiquity, because of its fee structure, and because of the use cases that it can offer, which and not otherwise be offered by a bank, which becomes the issuer of that instrument
Mhm.
otherwise.
Okay. There's a second
I mean,
question, but
Taufiq Saab
yeah.
may have a thought about it. This is just a
Huh.
quick comment.
Because the other question, the comment is not very clear what they're saying. But if you can, तौफीक साहब, अगर इसी के ऊपर आप भी जरा expand कर दें थोड़ा.
नहीं, अगर अगर अगर
Yes,
मैं
yes.
पहले पे कर सकता तो दोनों पे कर लेंगे. सो
हाँ हाँ.
मेरे ख्याल में बिल्कुल उल्टा है ये, बिल्कुल उल्टा है. इनफैक्ट ये जितनी
हम्म,
भी इस वक्त हमारे पास रीजनल या कंट्री स्पेसिफिक पेमेंट मेथड्स आ रहे हैं,
हम्म,
रास्त, पे पाक, सऊदी में चले जाएं माता, टर्की में चले जाएं ट्रॉय, रशिया में मीर, इंडिया में
हम्म,
रुपए, ये
हम्म,
सारे इसीलिए आ रहे हैं बिकॉज द कंट्रीज रियलाइज दैट द कैश ऑल्टरनेट whatever the digital rails are, वो उनके कंट्रोल में होना चाहिए, ना कि somebody else can pull the plug on them.
हम्म,
इसीलिए इसी तरह से जो प्रोजेक्ट है एम ब्रिज का, दिस इज ब्रिंगिंग वेरी
हम्म,
स्पेसिफिक कंट्रीज. So these are the country specific or the regional cooperation, economic cooperation where we see these things happening, and this is exactly what ये जो CBDC है, that's going to build that security in the sort of economy, which otherwise is uncertain when you have a Visa Mastercard, that you are completely dealing. हम सबको पता है कि जब यूक्रेन पे अटैक हुआ था तो उसके बाद रशिया पे
हम्म,
जब sanctions लगे थे, so they went through a really, really serious economic situation because people had cards and they cannot use it, and they had
yes,
no cash,
exactly.
and there was a serious issue, right? So yes, CBDC is the solution to that. I'll let Taufiq
That
Saab
is the
answer both.
जी जी. तौफीक साहब.
So I'll try to address both questions at once. First of all, uh, we have to understand that CBDC is not only the currency; it is a complete ecosystem that is going to open a lot of scenarios. For example, you want to transfer your property, you want to sell your property. Okay, current process is very hectic. You have to go to different departments, pay different fees. So when we discussed that, and we said that there will be no fees, or there will be a fixed charge. You can use a lot of use cases for maybe currently the world is moving towards this real world asset tokenization. You can transfer your property instantly and use the CBDC tokens for it. Maybe usually it happens that uh, because of the inflation, the property rates, the different investment opportunities are out of reach of general public. So you can tokenize those investment opportunities. It's a very different topic, real world asset tokenization. Maybe we can talk some later about it, but it comes in the same ecosystem. Um, if someone technical wants to read about it, they can go and see the implementation of Algorand, how it is being used for tokenizing and using it as in as in currency also. Also, like the controlling factor or becoming part of the US Treasury or not, or to spin off from it. Uh, this gives our central bank more control, and I think now with my this comment I will we will get a lot of comments from people who are DJs and stuff. See, who wants to hide their financial transaction? If I'm buying a car and I'm paying a tax, why would I like to hide it from the government? Okay, so in current scenario also, people who are paying tax, who are doing legal transaction properly, they are recorded. For example, you buy a property, you buy a car,
Yes.
you pay your, here we are paying VAT in Saudi Arabia and UAE. People are paying tax. Once you pay the tax, it becomes legal. And with this ecosystem, your taxation and everything becomes very easy. So less management. If I summarize these all the discussion and the answers for these questions, it's less management for the country, for the central bank. It combines a lot of your country's different departments, where we go and have bureaucratic issues stuck. Your file is stuck for moving, you want to sell it, you want to have in transfer of inheritance, you have to go to court, face a lot of issues people are facing day to day. So this brings their interest, what we were doing. So not only that, like Mr. Shahzad said, that if the financial interest is there is not only just the financial interest, there are a lot of other interests as well, that this complete ecosystem brings in.
No, absolutely. I mean, just the use cases are, I mean, humongous. I mean, whether it's property, whether it is the SME sector, the agriculture sector, within these sectors, there are hundreds of subsectors, from women empowerment to government, social welfare payments and emergency payments, flood, so I mean, it's limitless, jo advantages. And just to close, you know, uh, the FBR or NADRA, they already have, or they have access to all the information, irrespective, because pretty much every transaction, whether you buy an airline ticket, whether you buy a automobile, whether you buy property, your CNIC is used, right? I mean, so they have access to, or they can have access to all these databases, and they can have, even in the current scenario. So CBDC, Kearney say that should not be a hurdle, because they can have access to all this information already. So that goes without saying. But nonetheless, gentlemen, unfortunately, it's just a very expansive subject, and I'm sure we will continue to advocate and maybe debate this further and get more, people to participate and seek their thoughts and concerns. I thank you very much for taking out the time and giving us all an insight into this phenomena and how it's gripping the world. And let's see where Pakistan, at what stage do we enter and start the adoption process. So thank you once again for your time and for your comments.
Thank you, Najib sir. Thank you, Taufiq sir.
Thank you
Thank
I
very
you.
just really
much.
hope that
Assalamualaikum,
State Bank
everyone.
comes up with a very clear strategy, and at
Yes,
least create an advisory committee where different stakeholders participate, brainstorm, and make progress.
yes,
Then leaving people for creating rumors and confusing
absolutely.
comments. I think there will be a lot of news in the media. State Bank should form a committee of
No,
right people.
absolutely. I think, yeah, they have the forums,
That's
they
that's
have
the that's the
PBA.
only advice.
Yeah,
That's the only advice for
yeah,
now.
yeah. So PBA is there. There are a number of other forums. They
I'm
have
not
to
sure about
have
I'm
the.
not sure I'm not sure I'm not sure about PBA and its relevance
Uh-huh.
here. But
No,
yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean,
saying that there are a
I
number
would
of
expect to have I
forums
would expect
where.
to have a much bigger forum which is not fixed to, because you
Agreed.
see there are fintechs, there are merchants, there are other
No. You
technology
have to have the entire
technologists.
ecosystem. Absolutely, I absolutely agree.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying there are a number of forums, but they have to involve the overall ecosystem, the players in the ecosystem, so that and they should have number of debates. I mean, there's
yeah.
no harm in debating and sharing thoughts and ideas and challenges and concerns, whatever they may be. But the debate has to start. Excuse me. So, anyways, thank you so much once again for your time, and inshallah we will again touch base on this topic soon, and let's see how things progress. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Assalamu
you.
All right.
alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Assalamualaikum.